Thanks, Alyssa, for that introduction. It's really a privilege to be here and be able to share with you this morning. Something happened to me on the way up here this morning, and it happens to me often. It's as if God is asking me this question: what are you doing to these people? And so I bear a responsibility and recognize this as a privilege to be able to share with you this morning. It kind of comes as a surprise to a lot of people when I tell them that I played basketball in college. I mean, that's not the first thing you'd guess just by looking at me. And I actually played at Fresno Pacific University, which is Tabor's sister school out in California. And I transferred there from another NAIA school. And I called the coaches up. I wasn't happy with the situation where I was, and I had some connections in Fresno, so I called up the coaches and I asked about roster spots, and they hadn't seen any film on me. They weren't recruiting me. They weren't really interested. And they said, well, hey, come on down. You can try out. We'll see what happens. No promises, right? So they put my name on a list, I guess, of incoming players or something. And this is how the story was told to me. Some of the guys on the team found this list. And one of the guys was reading the list, and they see Trinity Western University, Wendell, Loewen. And I don't know how, but from that point on, I was a 6'9" black guy from Compton, which would have been awesome, but I was a 5'9" white guy from Canada, right? So you can imagine the disappointment when I show up for that first scrimmage in the fall. I walk in the doors, hey, I'm Wendell Loewen. They're going, wait, what? Really? I was not who they were expecting or who they were hoping for. And maybe, to be honest, when you saw me coming up on stage, an old white guy, you're thinking, he's not what I'm hoping for. And I recognize that in this day and age, that can be a barrier between me and you. And I pray and I hope that this morning I can somehow get around those barriers a little bit, and that you can hear from my heart this morning. Do you remember when you were a little kid and you were learning how to swim? And you'd go to the neighborhood pool and everything was all good, right? Your feet could touch the bottom, the water was up to your tummy, and every once in a while you'd dip your face in the water and it was cool and refreshing. It was all good. But there was one day you noticed something going on at the other end of the pool. The big kids, they're jumping off the diving board, doing belly flops and cannonballs, and you wanted to get in on some of that. So you start walking your way to the deep end. The water's going higher and higher. Then it gets to your chin. You're on your tiptoes, and then you take that one fateful step, right? And you slip, and you go down. The water shoots up your nose. You panic, and you flail your way back to the safety of the shallow end. But you knew there was more in the deep than what you were experiencing in the shallows. There's a beach close to where I grew up. It's actually a provincial park that when the tide is out, at low tide, you can walk out toward the water for almost a mile. And it's really cool. There are crabs running around. You can pick up seashells and sand dollars. And, of course, you can make sand castles and play football and throw frisbees around and play volleyball. It's great. And there were a few times I can remember when the tide was really low and I could walk out to the edge of the water. And the ocean floor would sort of drop off like a cliff. And I'd get to the edge and the water would be lapping over my ankles. And I could look out and I could see people water skiing. I could see sailboats. I could see deep sea fishermen fishing for halibut and sockeye salmon. Sometimes I would see killer whales breaching the surface as they're jumping out of the water, and even further out, I could see cargo ships making their way out to sea. There was this entire world of adventure that was out there, way beyond my shallow existence. It was out there in the deep, and there's something about the deep that draws us. We know that there is more in the deep than there is in the shallows. So I find it really ironic and curious then that we live in such a surface-focused culture. I mean, think about what we glamorize and who we idolize. You know, we think about our celebrities, our social media influencers, and what is it about? It seems to be, and you can help me with this, like it's about a look, it's an image, it's appearance, it's a lifestyle. And what is being called is not self-promotion, it's being called self-presentation. And we know it's not really authentic. Even their authenticity is called managed authenticity. Their authenticity isn't even authentic. And we know it. But we sort of get caught up into the spin cycle of our culture, and we try to keep up. And you know what ends up happening? Same thing that happens to me. We compare everything we know about ourselves to everything we don't know about everyone else, those celebrities, those influencers, and we always lose. But deep down, intuitively, we know there's got to be something deeper to life. We live in a surface-focused culture, and that leads to a shallow existence. But Jesus offers deeper life. That's something that Simon discovered one day. Simon, also known as Peter, was a fisherman. And he had been fishing all night, didn't catch anything. And he and his fishing partners were cleaning their nets the next day. And that's when Jesus shows up. We read about it in Luke chapter 5. In fact, Jesus borrows Simon's boat to use as a platform when he's speaking to the crowd. And while he's teaching, he sees Simon and these other fishermen cleaning the nets. And when he's done, he walks over to Simon and he says, "Take your boat and put it out into the deep water. Put it out into the deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Now, you have to remember that Jesus is a rabbi with a carpentry background, and he's telling a professional fisherman how to fish. And Simon says, "Look, we have been fishing all night. We haven't caught anything. But since you say so, we'll do it." There was something compelling about Jesus. And when they did, there was a miraculous, massive catch of fish. So many fish that the nets were about to break. They called their partners in the other boat over, and both boats were so full, they were both about to capsize. And when they finally make it into shore, Simon drops to his knees in worship. And he and those other fishermen left everything immediately to follow Jesus, because they experienced the abundance that only Jesus could offer, but they had to go to the deep to find it. We live in a surface-focused culture, and that leads to a shallow existence, but Jesus offers deeper life. So I want us to think about three important questions that all of us ask at some point in our lives. Some of you may be asking these questions while you're here in college. Some may be asking these questions even today. So I want you to think with me today. So here's the first question. The first question is, how do I find meaning in life? Where do I go and how can I find meaning in my life? Well, here's what our world's answer is. It's called self-fulfillment. Right? The life is about you. We can also call it, personal happiness. But look at what we glamorize in the media, mass media, social media. It's about getting all the money you can to find safety and security, getting that career that will give you power and prestige. Even your relationships should be about you. You should only surround yourself with people who deserve your magic. Or people that will help you become the best version of you. It's all about you. It's self-fulfillment. I talk about 3 A's, see if I can remember them. Acquisitions, accomplishments, and achievements. If you can build those 3 things in your life, you can experience self-fulfillment. But there's a backside to that message that our world gives us. We often hear things like, can't rest on your laurels. What have you done for me lately? Happiness is just one purchase away. Self-fulfillment is empty. It doesn't last. It's like vapor. You try to grab it and it's here and it's gone. I keep thinking about an interview that Tom Brady did years ago on 60 Minutes. It's a television news magazine. And at that time, he had just sort of arrived as an NFL superstar. He had a couple of MVPs already, a couple Super Bowl rings. He had just signed what was at that time the richest contract in NFL history, and he just married a supermodel. So he was asked, what's it like to have it all? And I found his answer was profound. He said, I've reached all my dreams. I've achieved everything I ever hoped to. And I keep asking myself, is this it? Is this it? There's got to be more to life than this. Even the greatest of all time recognizes that self-fulfillment is ultimately empty. So Jesus says, if you want to save your life by going after achievements, acquisitions, and accolades, if you want to save your life, you'll end up losing it. But if you lose your life for me and for the gospel, you will find it. You will find it. So Jesus' answer to meaning, it's not self-fulfillment, self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice. And the way I talk about self-sacrifice in this context would be that allowing Jesus to bring you to a place where you are no longer the center of your universe. That the needs and desires of others come before your own. In fact, you're willing the good of another. That's another way of describing what real love is. Willing the good of another. That's self-sacrifice. I've got to tell you about Brian. Brian was an all-conference linebacker here at Tabor. He was a communications major, and he had to take my class over interterm. He didn't want to take my class, and I could tell. You know what happened? First day of class, he comes in a little late, and he walks right in front of me, and when he does, he sort of bows up, and he gives me the side eye. Like, I don't want to be here. Well, part of that class involved going down to Wichita, and we did a work with World Impact, which is an urban ministry. And we did things with after-school programs. We served in a soup kitchen. But we also were at a middle school in Wichita that was really influenced by a lot of gang activity and gang violence. And I noticed something about Brian in that moment. Something changed, something clicked, and he was connecting with these boys. And he leaned over to one of his classmates and he said, "Jillian, this wasn't supposed to happen this way. I was just supposed to take the class, finish out my spring semester, and get out of here." Something was going on in his heart. See, he saw himself in those boys, and he was reminded about what life was like back home in Houston. Make a long story short, when he graduated from Tabor, he didn't go into communications right away. He spent the next 10 years working in a boys' home back home in Houston, pouring his life into the life of those boys so they could have a better life. That's self-sacrifice. And he would tell you that he felt meaning at its deepest level. So are you tired of splashing around in the shallows, chasing after self-fulfillment? Jesus is offering something deeper. It's called self-sacrifice. So here's another question. The question might go something like, how can I know that I'm really alive? Like I'm living life to the full? Because so many of us, we know we're living, but we don't feel alive anymore. Life has become dull and monotonous and boring. I need something to let me know I'm alive. Well, our world's answer is live for the moment. Live in the moment. Live in the now. Right? There's something called an experience economy. It's a $10 billion annual industry driven by social media and the fear of missing out. And people will pay big money for experiences. So, it's things like, of course, bungee jumping and hang gliding and wave boarding and color runs. But it's also things like karaoke and sushi making and crossbow lessons and fried chicken tours. Like people will pay big money to experience the moment. There's nothing more personal than how you experience the moment. You know what the problem with that is? That's about how long it lasts. Is a moment. Right? Have you heard of Stunt Food? So Stunt Food is like the peanut butter bacon shake or the zombie frappuccino or fried butter, right? Food companies have done their research and they know what the longings are of our culture. They know that we're longing to feel alive. And so if they can make our mouth happy for a minute and you pay for it, we've touched that place of feeling alive again. But Jesus' answer to finding life is not through living in the moment. It's living into your call. See, God is in the business of calling. God has been at work in the world and is at work in the world and will always be at work in the world, and he's never done anything without human involvement. And God is calling you, and he's calling me, he's calling each of us to be a part of what he's doing in the world. 64130 is a zip code in the Kansas City area. 64130 is also known as the murder factory of the state of Missouri. More convicted murderers come from 64130 than any other zip code in the state or in a wide region. And when Kaylee discovered her call, she wanted to change that. So when Kaylee graduated from Tabor, she went back home to Kansas City. She did some work in some rescue missions, and she discovered something, that if the path to homelessness was like a river. At the bottom of the river would be the rescue missions, rescuing people from addictions and poverty and homelessness, and that's important. But at the top of that river is education. Education will give you choices. Education will give you opportunity. So, she decided to do something about that. Did you know that, just a side thing, that lawmakers can predict with a high degree of accuracy the crime rate in a given community based on third grade reading levels? If you can't read up to level in third grade, school gets tough. You're more likely to drop out, less likely to persist, and a life of crime becomes kind of a tantalizing career opportunity. Right? So Kaylee wants to change the narrative of 64130. So she moves into the community. And then she started the Urban Christian Academy, which is the only free Christian education in the Kansas City area. And she's drawing from students. She's right next door in 64132, and she's drawing students from 64130. She calls them scholars. She has over 80 scholars in that school. She's the chief fundraiser, the CEO, the principal, the main bus driver. She pays her teachers the same as the pay scale of Kansas City Public Schools. And her passion is that those scholars will someday graduate with a quality Christian education that gives them opportunities and choices that they would have never had without that kind of quality education. That's her passion. Do you think Kaylee needs stunt food to feel alive? She's living into her calling. Jesus said, I have come that you might have life and have it to the full. And when you live out your call, you experience that abundant life, that eternal kind of life. It's been said that your calling is where your heart's deep gladness meets the world's deep need. Your heart's deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. That's where you will find your calling. And that's one of the things that we're about here at Tabor. We want to help you discover your calling, to listen to the voice of God and pay attention and go do what makes your heart come alive. Find your calling. So are you tired of splashing around in the shallows, going after the moment? Maybe it's time to go with what Jesus offers and live into your call. So the third question I want to have us think about is a tough one. Where do I go to find healing? How do I find healing in my life? I know that every one of us has experienced brokenness in some way. I'm a broken man. We are all broken people, and we experience it uniquely. And I know that growing up these days in this generation is much harder than it was when I grew up. And we're all experiencing some level of brokenness. And we feel as though our hearts are shattered pieces on the floor of life. And we're asking, where do I find healing? Well, our world says, get away from it. Get over it, get around it, internalize it, stuff it. Whatever you do, just don't feel the pain. And you know what that can lead to? That can lead to things like alcohol, drug addiction, sex, anything to just cover up the pain, just numb the pain for a moment. But if we keep lifting up the Band-Aid, the wounds and scars are still there, and it still stings. So I want to say something, and I want you to hear me well, and I want to say it carefully. And I don't want to minimize anyone's brokenness or pain. But rather than stepping away from the pain, now hear me well, is maybe it's time to step toward it. and embrace it. You see, God is in the redemption business. God can redeem anyone or anything. And could it be that maybe God could be using your experience, even your brokenness, to form you into someone for something? I have something here. It's called a mosaic. There's a picture on the screen. This is a mosaic I did a couple of years ago. A fact that seems to impress no one. Okay. A mosaic is made up of broken things, usually glass or ceramic. And what the artist does is grab these broken pieces and refines them and brings them together to create something uniquely beautiful. And as I've done these, I've also discovered something else. It's not just the broken pieces that make it beautiful, it's the cracks and the breaks, the scars, that give it its stunning richness and depth. Could it be that Jesus is reaching out to you and gathering up those broken pieces, and through his love and forgiveness and mercy is forming you into a uniquely beautiful masterpiece? And that you could have a redemption story. And your story can be a gift to the rest of us, a gift to the world. No matter how deep your brokenness is, Jesus' healing is deeper still. Jesus' healing is deeper still. And it's to us that Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden or burdened or broken, and I will give you rest. Learn from me, and you will find rest for your souls." That's Jesus' invitation. So are we tired of splashing around in the shallows, skimming the surface? Are we tired of chasing after self-fulfillment, chasing after the moment, running away from our brokenness? Maybe it's time today for you to follow Jesus and put your boat out into the deep water and lower your net for a catch and experience the abundance, the deeper life that only Jesus can offer. Self-sacrifice, living into your call and experiencing the healing that only Jesus can give. I have a sense that maybe something that's been said today has touched your heart. And if it has, I want to encourage you and invite you to take the next step. Find someone you trust. Ryan's here. It might be a friend. It might be an RA. It could be a professor or a coach. Find someone you trust and say, "I want to know more about who this Jesus is. And I want to follow this Jesus into the deeper life that only Jesus can offer." Let's pray together. Our God, we're thankful for how you are at work in our lives. Lord, we want to lean on you and follow you and look to you for the answers to the deepest questions of our lives. I pray that as we look to you, we will find you and follow you into the deeper life that only you can offer. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great day.